When I was doing research for this course, I came across a statistic that frankly kind of surprised me that the current beliefs about the afterlife, more people believe in the afterlife than I would have suspected. Mormons report the highest rate in belief in the afterlife, in a conscious afterlife, I should say. 98% of Mormons report a belief in a conscious afterlife, followed by evangelicals, Pentecostals, and fundamentalist Christians at 94%. Even mainline Protestant Christians trailed it slightly at 93%. Most Muslims, 90% of Muslims agree with the afterlife. Catholics come in about 85%, Jews, 58%. Jews are much more agnostic about the afterlife. Hindus, about 60%. They were the least likely among religious Americans to believe in life after death. Now, predictably, those without a religious affiliation who call themselves atheists or agnostics were least confident in life after death. They were about 32%. But Americans who identify as spiritual but not religious, which are about now 8% of the population and growing quickly, were a lot more confident in life after death at about 80%. So I threw a lot of numbers at you there. But the thing is, there's a large percentage of the population that believes in some form of afterlife. Again, the lowest number in that group I just threw at you were people call themselves atheists or agnostics, but even they were at over 30% who believed in some sort of afterlife. And I'll put a link to the data here in case you want to go through that in more detail. The thing I find fascinating about this is because we live in a Western culture that's become increasingly materialistic, that's increasingly told us that we are accidental biological robots in a meaningless universe, that we come into existence when our DNA happens to be formed from our mother and fathers coming together, and that we cease to exist when our brains and our hearts stop. Um, that seems to be the prevailing view of a lot of science and materialism, which is the society that we're kind of immersed in. So I wonder why there's such a high belief in the afterlife. And I think that's because I think deep down in our hearts, we actually know it's true. And I think possibly the people that have called themselves atheists and agnostics are people who have maybe clung to that materialistic society a little bit more. And I'm going to talk in great detail about why I think that's a mistake. So the thing is, though, this belief in the afterlife that we have now, for most of us, is just that. It's a belief. It's something that we take on faith, not based on knowledge. There's a person I was talking to not very long ago. This person had grown up as a Christian, been a Christian for literally decades, from the time of a teenager into well into their 80s. And we were talking about the afterlife and someone close to them who had passed away. And they said, I don't really know where they are or how that could be. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And even though this person had been immersed in this belief and this faith for their whole life, they didn't really have it into their heart. They didn't really hold it as a fact. Many people feel unsure about their beliefs. I think that's why people get so upset whenever we challenge some of their beliefs, because they're holding on to them by a thread, because they're believing in books that were written a couple of thousand years ago. They're believing in some doctrines that don't make sense to them, but they're holding on to it because they want to hold on to that hope that there is an afterlife. Um, I'm telling you, you don't have to hold on to that necessarily. You can examine the evidence. You can know, and that's why we're here now. Now, when it comes to science, when it comes to people that say, I'm scientific minded, most scientists don't even consider any possibility of an afterlife, at least when it comes to their research. They're not doing it, they're not funded for that, they're not looking for that. The scientific paradigm, they've been told, is a materialistic paradigm, which says if we can't measure it, if we can't see it, if we can't measure with our instruments, then it doesn't exist. There's virtually no funding for afterlife research. And when scientists propose studying anything to do with the afterlife, it can make you a laughing stock among your peers. It can get you thrown out of universities, even. So, what the thing is, many of us do believe, as I started off this module by saying, so many of us believe, but we believe in spite of what we believe is a lack of evidence. We don't even go looking for the evidence because we've been told it doesn't exist. So this leaves many of us as what I call doubting believers. we're secretly thinking that we're just practicing wishful thinking. And we're hoping that no one's going to challenge us on it. And we're hoping nothing's going to come along and bust our bubble because we want to believe, but we don't believe we have reasons to believe. People who adopt the materialistic paradigm that I talked about earlier often believe that they are superior in intellect and knowledge, and frankly, in the ability to face the truth that we are these accidental biological robots, and grow up. Stop believing in fairy tales. Just understand that you're born and you die, and that's it. So, what I'm going to ask you now is, wouldn't it be great to know that the evidence points to just the contrary of what those materialistic atheists think? We are not wishful thinkers. We are not people deluding ourselves. We are not people who are scared to examine the evidence. Quite the contrary. I've been studying this myself now for probably 25 or 30 years. And I can tell you that the more I study it, the more evidence I uncover. And so stay tuned. We'll share that as we go forward.